On a beautiful day, just a few years ago, my wife and I entered a hospital near our home in Oakland, California, for the birth of our first daughter, Maya. We had responsibly toured the birthing center in advance, and yet we were somehow still startled to find ourselves in the place where we would experience one of the most significant moments of our lives. We were stuck in a windowless room with no hint of the bright and sunny day that we had left. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Paint on the walls was beige, and machines beeped inexplicably as a wall clock indicated day turning to night.
So, you were in a hospital room. I mean, if you want high-class aesthetics and an oceanfront view, you might try undertaking a natural birth in a fancy hotel. Oh, but wait, let me guess. All of this was a problem.
That clock was placed above a door in direct line of sight to where my wife lay as her contractions increased hour after hour. Now, I've never given birth, but she assured me that the last thing that a birthing woman would ever want is to watch the seconds tick by.
So, you're here to instruct us on the appropriate interior design of maternity wards?
An architect by training, I've always been fascinated watching people experience design in the world around them. I believe design functions like the soundtrack that we're not even fully aware is playing. It sends us subconscious messages about how to feel and what to expect.
So, you're here to instruct us on emotionally productive building design?
That room that we were in seemed completely misaligned with the moment that we were experiencing, welcoming a human being, our daughter, into this world. At one point, a nurse, without any prompt, turned to us and said, "I always think to myself, I wish I had become an architect because I could have designed rooms like this better." I said to her, "An architect did design this room."
Was that a punchline? Because that wasn't much of a joke, if it was a joke. Anyway, are we going to at least get to our speaker's thesis statement at some point?
Despite the immense joy of our daughter's birth, the messages of that hospital room stick with she and I to this day.
The messages. The plain, utilitarian nature of the room that your daughter was born in has scarred you for life with its subliminal oppressions. Got it.
Those messages are, you are not at home. You are in a foreign place.
Yes, you're in a hospital, not a luxury spa.
You are not in control of anything, not even the lighting.
Correct. You are not in control. Barring your being a medical doctor trained in overseeing a birth, you must defer to the professionals in the room as well as the forces of nature.
Your comfort simply is secondary.
Comfort while giving birth. I'll just let that one sit where it is.
A hospital room like this might just be described or dismissed as uninspiring. At worst, it is undignifying. And I use it to point out that none of us, anywhere in the world, are immune from bad design.
Well, now, I will grant you that one, especially in the AAA gaming world.
I went into architecture because I believed it was about creating spaces for people to live their best lives. And yet what I found is a profession largely disconnected from the people most directly impacted by its work.
The people most directly impacted by its work. So, people are impacted by architecture in degrees? So, there is an architectural system of oppression. Got it.
I believe this is because architecture remains a white, male, elitist profession. Seemingly unconcerned with some of the greatest needs in the world, or even the relatively simple needs of an expectant mother.
Ah, so our speaker is a part of the very problem he is complaining about, being that he is a white male with an elite background of a master's degree in architecture, along with a litany of awards, honors, and positions in the design world. So, I wonder how our speaker will subtract himself from this unjust equation that he has laid out for us.
Students are trained in school using highly theoretical projects, rarely interacting with real people or actual communities. Graduates are funneled through a long, narrow, unforgiving path to licensure. Meanwhile, the profession holds up a select few through relentless award programs.
A select few like you?
Focus almost exclusively on the aesthetics of buildings, rather than the societal impact or contributions of them.
So, is our speaker going to give back, resign, or decline from all of the awards and honors he has received? I mean, given that the very process that put him on that stage is so inherently and socially unjust, I would assume he's getting ready to fall on his own sword.
Now, I'd like for you to just think about some of the spaces that you inhabit.
Okay. A cubicle at work, and an apartment that was probably built in the late 70s or early 1980s. Those are my most primary spaces.
And I'd like to have you think about how they make you feel.
Well, glad to be employed and happy to have my own place to live. Overall, they make me feel comfortable.
Now, there are places that make us feel unhappy.
Yeah, like TED Talks.
Unhealthy.
Yeah, like TED Talks.
Or uninspiring.
You get the idea.
And I ask, how might these places be better designed with you in mind?
Well, I suppose that assumes that I think of myself as the center of the universe, which I don't. My workplace isn't there to accommodate my personal creature comforts, and my home is what I make of it for myself. Every building I walk into isn't crafted for me, nor do I expect it to be, lest I am building it myself for myself.
Because we are conditioned to feel like we don't have much agency over the spaces and places that we live, work, and play.
We don't. Seriously, we don't. We make use of what we have before us. If we have the option to personalize it, we can. But most times, we don't.
And in many cases, we don't.
Well, thank goodness we can agree on something. Now, how many cases is many?
But we all should.
Should. Should. Why? And I wonder if our speaker has ever heard of the phrase, "You cannot please all of the people all of the time."
Now, here's a potentially dumb question for any women watching. Have you ever stood in a disproportionately long bathroom line?
Women's bathroom lines. Is this the grand revelation that we have been waiting for?
Did you ever think to yourself, what is wrong with this picture?
Knowing how most women operate, both biologically and in the self-grooming department? Not really.
Well, what if the real question is, what is wrong with the men that designed these bathrooms?
Well, I don't know, white, male, elitist architect. Why don't you tell us?
It may seem like a small thing, but it's representative of a much more serious issue.
All right, a much more serious issue. This had better be good, otherwise I am putting this video out of my own misery right now.
The contemporary world was literally built by men who have rarely taken the time to understand how people unlike them experience their designs.
Yes, architecture designed by men is inherently flawed and disregards anyone not like men. And the length of a waiting line for the women's restroom tells us that this is so. White male elitist architects have held a monopoly on becoming architects and designing buildings for far too long. They cannot be trusted to design things that are not exclusionary. Which is why we should not trust our speaker in anything he is saying. Because despite the truth he is preaching, he still thinks he has the right to stand on a stage and tell women about the correct way to design things for women. Golly, will some men just never learn? As always, thank you for watching.